Okay, so thanks for joining again. So I see your assignment on the GitHub link which you have shared. So we'll discuss about the assignment in detail, how you are going to submit the assignment and how you are going to access the GitHub repository and all. So we will speak in detail at the last of this but today's session. So we'll jump into the agenda of today's session. So today we will be mostly discussing on detailed understanding on what is AWS architecture and some overview to GitHub. So I'll not have a much deep dive into the GitHub because we will be covering that in a more deep manner or in more detail when we get into the DevOps tools, because GitHub comes into the version control system. Okay, but I'm giving an introduction to Git because most of our assignments will be on the GitHub basis. So you should be able to understand what is GitHub and how we are trying to access it and all. Okay, and I'll also give a very basic introduction on the AWS EC2, and I'll just give a demonstration on how you're going to launch an EC2 instance and all. Okay, so then I'll give a very quick introduction to Linux if we are having some time. Sorry, any queries, Prakash?
1 minute, 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, cleaning
Okay,
button has come and share that.
okay,
Yeah, we can. Yes.
okay, no problem. So I'll cover up with the introduction to Linux and basic commands and its usage if we have some time after our EC2 launch and all. But we will try to launch a simple EC2 instance today, and we'll understand the basic architecture on AWS. How does it look like? What are its different components and how it goes and all. We will log into the AWS console. I hope you have created a free tier account. You can just go through the video again which I'll be sharing, and then you can utilize it to creating EC2 instance. It will be pretty much simple, it's not that complex, but I'll be giving you an assignment by the end of this today's session, where I'll be asking you to do some background activity on EC2, set up some things. It will be more deeper than what we discussed, so that you need to get into internet, understand the things, how it's going. So I'll try to cover up the Linux introduction and its basic commands if time is there, or else because it's a complete different topic. I've introduced it because most of the DevOps stuffs, whenever you get into the projects or whenever you start working on any of the client side environments, 90 to 94% of the servers we deal with are Linux based. Either it can be CentOS, it can be RHEL, or it can be Amazon Linux. Okay, so we need to have that basic introduction or basic understanding about Linux operating systems, the way we use, and very basic commands and its usage. It's not like you will be asked to by heart all the Linux commands. It's not necessary. Rather, you need to have an understanding of some basic commands so that you can solve your day-to-day activities. So I'll give a comprehensive list of training on some basic commands which you generally come across in your day-to-day activities. Rest all you can easily get into the Linux manual documentation, and you can just check the purpose of your task and you can get the command for that. Okay, but you need to more look into like how experimentally you learn the things, and how more you gain the knowledge by getting into the documentation and just searching for the things what you want for your day-to-day activity. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's get into the detailed understanding on AWS architecture. So this is a simple AWS architecture I have taken from the Amazon blogs or Amazon.com website. So this contains just a second, let me get my pointer. Okay, so this contains Amazon Route 53 service. So all these services we will get in detail of their usage and all. So let us say that this Amazon Route 53 is a service provided by AWS for DNS, like nothing but domain naming service, where you register your URL and the users get into that and connect to that. Okay, and this CloudFront is something like a distribution service, and this web application firewalls and all. So this is a simple architecture where you will see, like for example, VPC is nothing but a virtual private cloud, where users connect to a distribution service, then using an internet gateway and load balancers, they connect to all these services. Okay, so this seems to be a typical architecture when you see for the first time when you just started on AWS, but it will be more and more comfortable once you get into the environments and you start exploring the service one by one. Okay, so it's not like once you get into the a real AWS engineer job, or it's a DevOps job, we are not going to deal with only one service. So we'll be dealing with multiple services, integrating that together. Okay, so let me make you understand a simple thing on what do you say, this AWS architecture, how does that work. So let us say, for example, so let us say this is you. Okay, so the person, so first question for the person would be how he will be connecting to AWS. Okay, so the thing is, like you generally have a internet service providers, like for example it can be Act, or it can be some fiber nets or something. Okay, so they provide you the internet. Okay, so that you can browse all the websites like www.google.com or something like that. Okay, in the similar fashion you will also connect to amazon.com. Okay, so using your internet service providers, you connect to amazon.com. So this is how you generally access on day to day. But after you connect to amazon.com, there is some a big infrastructure that you are connecting via internet, which is nothing but Amazon data center. Okay, so this is nothing but a Amazon data center. Okay, this is nothing but a Amazon data center. Let us say this is you. Okay, you have an active internet connection, and on your laptop, okay, you are trying to connect to Amazon. Okay, you just have your internet connection enabled, open a browser and click on amazon.com using some management console. We'll just look into that, but think you are connected to amazon.com, and that says that you are connected to a data center. Let us say this data center is located in Mumbai. Okay, so whenever you log into this Amazon console, okay, so this asks for, like for example, to which server you want to connect, to which instance you want to connect. So whenever you're creating your infrastructure, so this data centers gives you an option to provision your own private cloud. Okay, like for example, if you are going to a movie, okay, if you are going to a movie and you open your Book My Show and you book a ticket for 2 hours for watching a movie, so how you book your chair or how you book your ticket, in the similar fashion on this big data center you are going to book your hardware, which is nothing but, like for example, I want about 15 GB of RAM. Okay, and for example 50 GB of hard disk. Okay, so that I want to run my application on this, I want to place it here. So using this Amazon data center, using this console, you will just procure that, and by connecting to this data center, so we generally call this as a VPC. Okay, because this is virtual private cloud where you will be hosting your applications or nothing but the servers. Okay, so you'll just log into the console and procure some servers, and using the internet you just connect to this particular servers. Okay, we generally call this as a virtual private cloud. Under virtual private cloud, you can have multiple subnets. Okay, we'll discuss in detail about like what is this virtual private cloud, but make an understanding that when a user is trying to connect to this Amazon data center, he is nothing but trying to connect to his virtual private cloud or to a private cloud which this person is having access to. Okay, under this virtual private cloud only there will be a lot of infrastructure that will be built. It can be EC2 servers, or it can be S3 buckets, or it can be some kind of databases, or it can be anything other than this. Okay, so everything will be under a VPC, and you connect to the VPC via the internet by providing by internet service provider. You connect to the URL, and from there you connect over here.
By internet gateway.
Sorry.
Through internet gateway we come.
Internet gateways comes into picture when the application is hosted on on a VPC. Okay, connecting to the VPC, it's something like you directly connect from the console and all. Okay, but for example, if you deploy any application, okay, if you deploy any application on EC2, to make that application visible to this particular user, okay, to make that application, for example, this is your application. Okay, so this application needs to be accessed by this person. What you will do is you will have this internet gateway. Okay, internet gateway on the top of this EC2 instance, or nothing but on this VPC. Okay, on this internet gateway, and you just enable so that this user can come and access this particular application. Okay, so we will get that in detail. So internet gateway is nothing but it will be used for connecting to your applications which are hosted in the virtual private clouds. Okay, so this gives the ability to ensure like you are opening the internet to your application hosted on the servers. Okay, clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back, let's make a clear understanding that I'll just give in a quick just a second. So quick overview on like what we discussed on this is nothing but there will be a user. Okay, so this will be the data center. Okay, and this data center will be underlying, will be having some VPCs. Okay, under VPC there will be servers. Okay, so the basic understanding for this is using your internet service provider or using your laptop with a browser. Okay, you connect to this Amazon AWS console, okay, on which all the data will be there. Okay, using this console you connect to data center. By selecting some options you connect to VPC. Under VPC, by selecting some options you connect to servers. Okay, so this is how the general flow would be. Even if you see in the previous architecture, if you see over here, this user is connecting to Amazon CloudFront using a HTTPS URL. In the background, this is what happening. Okay, this all will be under a VPC, and it connects to a server, and internally it's gets your application and everything. Okay, it's as simple like you connect to a web application on any URL, and at the back end the architecture will be present on the virtual private cloud. Okay, sure. So one more thing on this is you need to understand is this virtual private clouds can be procured on the AWS console. Okay, so once we log into the console, now when we are creating the EC2 instance, I will give you a deep dive. But this virtual private cloud, it's not like one data center can be having one virtual private cloud, it can be many. Okay, so
Yeah.
so let me give you another example of this. What is this data center is? Okay, so because when you start a very early training, you will be having like, for example, what is a data center? Okay, so a data center is nothing but, according to Amazon, it's a big room of a huge hardware where you can have a lot of servers. Okay, a lot of servers, which is nothing but the hardware and all. Okay, so these data centers will be at multiple locations. Okay, so we generally call them as regions. Okay, in AWS, data centers firstly will be present in regions like US North Virginia. Okay, US North Virginia, or it can be Mumbai, or it can be something like Sydney, something like that. Okay, so in US North Virginia, this we call it as a region. Mumbai we call it as a region. Sydney we call it as a region. Yeah, under each and every region we have multiple availability zones. Okay, AZ1, AZ2, AZ3, something like that. So if you see, every region will be having multiple availability zones, AZ1, AZ2, and something like AZ3. This says that in a region their data centers are at multiple locations. Like let us say, for example, if you think an example of Telangana, okay, in Telangana is a region, okay, in Telangana my data centers are at Hyderabad, and it's at Warangal, and somewhere it's around Karimnagar. Okay, this says that if suppose Hyderabad is down, my application can be served from Warangal and Karimnagar. If Warangal is down, my application can be served from Karimnagar. If this is down, my application can be served from any of these two. Okay, so this is how what they usually maintain is they will ensure like any of the availability zone will always be available on a particular region. Okay, so always the regions in AWS, the data centers are divided into regions, and regions are divided into availability zones. Okay, AZ1 and AZ2, something like that. Okay, so once these availability zones are present, your servers will be procured on any of this availability zone. That's how you come into a data center. So a data center is nothing but typically a physical hardware present at an availability zone, okay, in a particular region. Like let us say, for example, this is US North Virginia region. Okay, in US North Virginia region, let us say there are 4 availability zones. Okay, AZ1, AZ2 or AZ3 and availability zone 4. Okay, in each and every availability zone I will be having one very big data center. Okay, so whenever you are creating over here, for example, whenever you are creating using AWS console, you want to create a server, so that's how you will just go to this availability zone. Okay, and you select an availability zone and you create a server 1. Okay, and either you can select it to server 2 on a second availability zone, and server 3 and server 4. Okay, this ensures that when a user is trying to access your application, this ensures that if some availability zone is down, the application can be served from other availability zones. Okay, so this will be a little bit confusing at the start of the point, but just make an understanding that there will be a big data center physically present, from which we will hire some hardware to hold our application or to deploy our application or serve our application. Previously, when we discussed our traditional computing, we used to have a big rooms in the offices to have our applications running in the server rooms. Now we don't see that particular practice in any of the offices. It can be a very small offices, or it can be a startups or a big MNCs, or it can be banking and finance companies or the banks and all. You don't see that much server rooms now, because everything has been moved into cloud. They have used a particular vendors and all, so they procure some service near to their region, they host their application, and the vendors or AWS or the cloud providers, or they are much more responsible for maintaining their infrastructure in a safe and secured and highly available place. Okay, this ensures that your application is highly available, your application is scalable, and your application is meant for disaster recovery. Okay, so these are some topics which we generally come across when you are working as a DevOps engineer in your day-to-day activities. People on the meetings, they speaks about like our application should be a disaster recovery. So this says that even if there is a disaster in one availability zone, it should be available in other. Or speaks about the highly available, because making this available for four locations, it makes it highly available. Okay, and also scalable. For example, you load an application in a server and you enable the auto scaling. So auto scaling also we'll speak that particular point in detail when we are discussing about EC2. So this auto scaling is nothing but it's a mechanism of scaling your servers based on the payload or based on the traffic you are getting. Okay, so this also can speak about the scalability. Okay, so this all comes into the picture. So again, so you need to just have one understanding is that I am connecting to a virtual private cloud when I am trying to access, which is physically present at some place, but it's not maintained by me. I am paying some charge so that my application is hosted there, and paying some charge, they are maintaining my server. Okay, but you are for your application you are responsible for putting in the right code and all, but for the infrastructure the AWS will be responsible for maintaining it highly available. Your server will not switch off at any point of time, or everyone will be accessible to your server who are having the required access to it. Okay, so this is how generally we are seeing, like even if you see in the previous architecture, on this also it speaks about the similar kind of concept. Okay, so just a second. Okay, so this route 53 is nothing but the user connects to a particular service on AWS, and then he using the internet gateway he gets into the VPC, and some container service he connects to the URLs whatever the application you are trying to access. This is how it happens on the backend. So I'm not much dealing on this particular backends what they are happening, but I'm just showing on the topic like how the user is connecting to this AWS infrastructure. So in between there is a big phenomena, there is a big things that are happening, like you connect to a particular a data center present at a physical location, and that serves you this infrastructure, and this infrastructure is present at multiple locations so that you will withstand to any kind of disaster, or to any kind of things that happen using during the natural calamities or something. Okay, so this is something detailed understanding that we go on AWS, but still you'll be having pretty much queries, you can just comment on the section. But this is what we generally speaks on the key concepts that you need to come out of this discussion is like what is a region. A region is a place where the data centers are present, divided into multiple availability zone, and each and availability zone, every availability zone we have the physical data centers present at that location where we can procure the servers for hosting our application. So this is the key understanding that we need to take out of it. Okay.